Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please feel free to continue to eat and consume whatever beverage you have in front of you, but we are going to get started with our program today. And I'm going to begin by introducing the members of the head table. Over on the far end is Councilman John Bariak, and next to him is Councilwoman Tessa Spletzer. Next is Adam Zimmerman. Next is Councilwoman Sandra Braymeyer. The other day at the council meeting, one of the council people said to Sandra, "Do you know that some citizens want you to vacate your seat?" And Sandra responded, "I don't recall." Okay, it's almost an inside joke, but not quite. You have to think about that for a second. From Scope, the administrator of our Scope programs here at the Newton Falls Senior Center, right at 612 West Broad Street, Rochelle Drum. Rochelle, thank you for bringing Scope over here. All right. And of course, it'll be making a presentation just a little bit later, our Mayor, Ken Klein. Starting at the very far end over there, the judge of the 11th District Court of Appeals, Judge Matt Lynch. Next to him is Carol Hill, the wife of the famous mayor. Next to him, Mayor Arno Hill from Lordstown. Thank you, Your Honor, for being here. And next to him is Marilyn Waddell, who is married to the vice president of the Ohio Municipal League, our own former mayor, former councilman, Lyle Waddell from the Municipal League. Thank you so much for being here. We have some other dignitaries and public officials I want to make sure I recognize at this moment. Please recognize our police chief, Gene Fixler. Gene, thank you for coming here today. Please recognize our law director, Joe Fritz is here today. Our finance director, Anna Musson, is here today. Our director of everything electric, Bill George, is here. The director of our water purification department, Jeff Hawkins, is here. Jeff, wave your hand. There you are, right over there. The director of our streets department, Harry Shaver, is here. And the director of our wastewater treatment plant, I see him over there on that back table near the camera, Mike Novotny, is there. So thank you so much. And also a big thank you to my administrative assistant who worked so hard to make sure this thing worked. And that's Kathy King right over there. Wave your hand. And I don't want to forget this next guy because in Newton Falls, we have a fire district between the two neighboring communities, and that's our fire chief, Doug Theobald. Chief, thank you for coming. You know, I was talking to the chief the other day, and he said 80% of their calls are based on the use of marijuana. And that's why it is referred to as the Joint Fire District. Okay. My brother Matthew just said I'm not responsible for any of his jokes. Okay. We appreciate your kindness in being here today. We have a number of things to do, but what an honor it is to have Ferzan Ahmed, the director of the Ohio Turnpike, here today. You know, the Turnpike is the main artery for the body of Newton Falls, and have Ferzan come here today and give us an update and participate in keeping us informed. What a great honor it is. And to provide a more formal introduction of the director is the president of the Youngstown Warren Regional Chamber, the outstanding Guy Coviello. Guy?
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. What a great event. We've been doing Lattes and Legislators for about 4 years, and Newton Falls has the distinction of having hosted the best one. And after today, I can say that Newton Falls has the distinction of hosting the best 2 Lattes events that we've ever had. So David, thank you very much for putting this together. I want to recognize our sponsors first. This series of monthly speakers really connects the community with policymakers, and it couldn't happen without MS Consultants, 717 Credit Union, Encino Energy, and J. Arnold Wealth Management. So thank you guys for sponsoring the whole 12 event series this year. Also, for this particular program, the Village of Newton Falls and U.S. Safety Gear, thank you for helping put this together. Very nice event. One other person that I want to recognize, one of the first actions that I took when I became the president and CEO about 6 weeks ago, is I hired a vice president of government affairs. So I want everybody to meet him. Ryan McNaughton, would you stand up? Thank you, Ryan. You want to do it right now? And of course, Dave's going to throw me off the rails here. He has one more thing he wants to bring up, and then I'm going to introduce Ferzan. So, Dave.
Okay. Yeah, I skipped over a name because in his act of humility, he did not take his seat here at the table. Ladies and gentlemen, this event doesn't happen without the seed being planted and the field being plowed and the hard work being put forward by one of our council people who's been at the forefront of economic development, and he made this thing happen, really. And again, he's not seated at the table, but he's over at the coffee bar, so please take a look at and give a round of applause to our own Councilman Terry Alberini. He really made it happen, folks. Okay, I now return you to your regular program.
I think Terry just didn't want to be close to us. Disappointed. Yep. I have a second hat that I wear, and that is as an Ohio Turnpike and Infrastructure Commissioner. And we are undergoing quite a modernization of the Turnpike, and it's been excellent having a director that is spearheading this program for us and gives us so much confidence in what's about to happen probably over the next several years on the Turnpike. Your travel on that expressway will be unlike it is right now. And even looking far ahead, 10 years into the future with the connectivity that the Turnpike is going to offer and for autonomous mobility, and even as we speak, platooning of trucks testing that Turnpike roadway. So it is a great privilege for me to be able to introduce our speaker today, special guest, Executive Director of the Ohio Turnpike and Infrastructure Commission, Ferzan Ahmed.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Mr. Coviello. He, in addition to being the CEO of the Chamber, he is one of my bosses as a commission member. Have been very engaged with me since I have been in this position, and that's been almost 2 years now. I'm sorry, I take that back. It's been over 2 years now. And one of the things that Mr. Coviello's always talked to me about is what is the role of the Turnpike in the community? I know we are a road, but why is there a road? The road is there to connect communities. And since we are the ones that provide that connection all the way from Pennsylvania to Indiana, what is the role we play beyond making sure that our road is in good condition in terms of getting together with stakeholders and interacting with them? So I truly appreciate being invited here. It is my honor to be invited here, and wow, that's pretty darn amazing, and not a bad likelihood. It's okay. I think the beard, well, I threw them off with the beard, but that's okay. Before I start, I do want to acknowledge one other person. Stand up, Lori Davis. She's my number 2 at the Turnpike. She is the director of our toll operations. Does a fabulous job. Been there for 34 years, keeps me on my toes. I wanted to make a couple of other comments before I start my presentation. First of all, a wonderful job by Ms. Dunlap on the national anthem. And before the national anthem, when we were pledging allegiance to our flag, I saw several people saluting. So I wanted to thank and acknowledge the veterans here for your service to our country. I also wanted to give a shout out to the police chief and to the fire chief for your people, not just here, but everywhere in our communities, for the work that they do to make sure that we are safe and that we enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy. And I thank you, all of you, for that. So I have a few slides, and I'll talk about those slides. And as Mr. Coviello said, I'm going to talk about the future, and but we're going to talk about the future before talking about some history, and I love history. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the Turnpike started. It started back in 1952, and back then it cost $325 million to build the Turnpike. I think that would be several billion in today's dollars. 10,000 people worked on that job. It took 38 months. And the very first portion of the Turnpike that opened was in this area. It was actually the, where are we? Yeah, the Niles Youngstown interchange at State Route 18, not too far from here in Mahoning County, was the very first portion of the interchange of the Turnpike that opened. Now, when the Turnpike Act was passed by the Ohio Legislature, it was decided that 5 roads are going to be built. And the road that you see out there is road number 1. Can anyone tell me what happened to the other 4 roads? They were abandoned. Why were they abandoned? Think about that. And my friends from the Planning Commission and Tony Uranka, you guys are not allowed to answer for everybody else. Well, that's when President Eisenhower started the Highway Trust Fund and the gas tax and the whole national program to build the interstates. Otherwise, I-71, 75, 70 would have been roads number 2, 3, and 4, and I can't think of what road number 5 would have been. But that was the original plan with the Ohio Turnpike. There was no gas tax, there was no federal program to build these interstates, and watching the example of Pennsylvania, the Ohio legislatures thought that that would be a good way to do it. So, let's talk about COVID-19. I hate talking about it. I'm kind of sort of over it, but I do want to talk a little bit about it, about how we managed our people and our essential function. Of course, the governor declared a state of emergency on March 9, and we as part of that emergency, we were looking at several different things. But first of all, we got to keep our people safe because we didn't know how bad this thing was. And one of the things that we did was we divided people up into different groups. When we were having conversations, Laurie is one of the directors, we have 10 directors there, we would have a daily call because we didn't know what was going on. Nobody has lived through a pandemic, right? Now, depending on what you watch on TV, it's either going to go away in 2 weeks or we're all going to die. So there's so much uncertainty. So we decided that we're going to have a conversation every morning. What are you hearing? What's coming from the governor's office? What kind of questions are the employees asking? And the bottom line is, everybody was worried about their health. There's nothing Laurie and I could do about that, or Mr. Coviello could do about that. What we could do was make sure that they were not worried about their jobs. That was in our control. So the conversation we had was no knee-jerk reactions. We were looking at other turnpikes. Some turnpikes started laying people off. Some turnpikes decided they're going to open up all the gates and not charge any money and things like that. And I said, here's what we're going to do. No knee-jerk reactions. Let's stay calm. Let's stay focused. If this thing is going to last years, we're looking at the Great Depression. At that point, we're not going to worry about revenues. We're all going to lose our homes and jobs. That's a different story. And if this thing is not that bad, then let's just take it easy and relax and continue our natural operations. Use our rainy day fund. That's why it's there. It's raining. Let's use that money. Let's make sure everybody's employed. So we told our employees not to worry about their paychecks and their employment. That was the one thing that was in our control. Unfortunately, on the health side, we couldn't do anything. So here's what we did with our maintenance crews. We split up our maintenance crews into 2 groups. And on this, I think this went on for 2 months or so, Laurie, right? About 2 months. What we did was like half of them are working 1 week, and the other half are working the other week. But we paid them in full. The reason why we did that is, first of all, we needed the separation of people. Second reason why we did that, if God forbid several people got infected, we still got to conduct our business, and that way we can separate those people, quarantine them, and bring the other team in. Toll collectors. Now, what we do with the toll collectors? What we did with our toll collectors is we provided them with all the equipment, personal protective equipment that we could, gloves, sanitation. We put up shields similar to what you saw at the drive-thrus at McDonald's and other fast food areas. They would put a shield to separate people from the customers. So everything. So we did those kinds of things. It was important that we did not do what, as I mentioned, some of the other turnpikes did, open all the roads up and let people go, because we got to collect revenue. For us, the priority was keep our people safe, keep the traveling public safe, and keep everybody employed. And some of our employees actually asked us, why don't you just open everything up? And we said, well, the reason why we don't want to open everything up is because we want to make sure you are employed and we want to make sure you're paid. So the only way for us to do that is to try and keep people as safe as possible. And this worked, actually. We did have some positive tests, but we brought in fumigation services every time something like that happened. And fortunately, everyone who tested positive was okay and came back to work. The administrative employees were mainly working from home, which was also one of the governor's orders. I wanted to talk a little bit about our service plazas. Our service plazas are unique. There are rest areas everywhere in the state, excuse me, but the Turnpike service plazas are unique because of the amenities they provide and the quality of the service that they provide. As you guys know, many of the restaurants had to shut down. There was really not too many options for truck drivers to get off the road, find a place where they can rest, find a place where they can eat. And also in some other turnpikes in the rest of the country, they did shut down the service plazas. We decided that we are going to keep ours open. So since the restaurant and the eating areas at the plazas were shut down for a while, instead of, here's what we did. The cleaning contracts that we have are for the entire area. And since now they had to clean a much smaller area, we said let's increase the frequency of cleaning so that the truck drivers have a safe place to stop, rest, eat some food, and then we made sure that there was food available 24/7. Now, you're not always going to get a hot meal 24/7. That's not possible. But something was always there for them, and that was important. And we stayed in touch with the Ohio Trucking Association, and they really appreciated the fact that we kept this open. We saw that not as convenience, we saw that as safety. If the truck drivers are going to be out there, they need to be safe. Okay. I mentioned the service plazas. Our service plazas are an experience, and for those of you who like to travel in other states, if you stop at a service plaza, don't you enjoy yourself? I mean, you stop, and if it's not a regular rest area, you go in, you want to eat something, sometimes you walk around, and with my family and I, when there are a few in Georgia that are so nice that we actually sit outside and enjoy a few minutes of nature. So our service plazas are like that too. We provide an experience. It's a lot more than just stopping and using the facilities. And one of the things that we always try to do is when a concession contract is up for renewal, how can we make it better? So I wanted to mention this because Dunkin' Donuts and Jersey Mike and Wendy's, these are name brands, and so we're trying to up the ante here. Take it to the next level with some of our service plazas, and these are coming soon. These will be here actually between this year and next year in Portage County is where you're going to see these brands. All right, let's talk about some money. Now there are a lot of numbers on this, and you don't need to read all of the numbers, but I'll give you a big picture. Our forecast revenue. So at the end of 2019, when we set our budget for 2020, we had forecast that our 2020 budget will be approximately $355 million. Of course, that didn't happen. The highest impact to us, the lowest traffic and the lowest revenue was this time last year, April of 2020. Traffic was down almost 70%. But in June, traffic slowly started coming back up. We did have a loss in revenue. The total revenue by the end of the year that we lost was $38 million. Now I see my friend Tony Uranker and Jimmy, who used to work with me when I was at ODOT, and when you're talking about $38 million, for ODOT, that's like, come on, no big deal, right? It's one day's one project. But when you're looking at, it's not about the number, it's about how it relates to the overall picture. Our budget is about $350 million. $38 million is huge. That was a huge hit we took. Fortunately, we were able to absorb it with some cost-cutting measures we took. We did have an institute hiring freeze. A lot of people retired and we did not hire them back until recently, when we are slowly now hiring people back. And we pushed a couple of projects into following years, and we were also able to refinance some of our debt, and that saved us some money. We were also lucky in getting about $3 million from the COVID relief funds. Since, as I'd mentioned, we had separated our employees but paid them in full, that is considered employment cost under COVID, because that was a COVID thing. That was not something we wanted to do. So we were able to get reimbursement for some of that money. Now this, I believe, is the, I can't see it from here, but I think that's the traffic data, right? So again, on the traffic data, I will just mention the big picture to you. Traffic was down by 26.5%. So when we look at traffic at the Turnpike, there are different classes of vehicles. A regular car is a class 1, and so on and so forth. We classify them based on the number of axles. So the two of our most of the customers that we have are passenger vehicles and commercial trucks. So passenger vehicles were down quite a bit, as I said, 26% with quarter, that's huge. But the saving grace to us was commercial trucks. Now, I don't know about you guys, but you know, my wife and daughter keep Amazon.com pretty darn busy. And if you look out the window in any neighborhood, you see a FedEx truck or an Amazon truck. So I think that one of the things from staying at home or working from home or just people being careful and not going out as much as they do in normal life, one of the results of that was online shopping. And a lot of this online shopping means trucks on the Ohio Turnpike. So our truck traffic was down for a while, but not that much. And now our truck traffic is actually higher. And even though the passenger traffic is still down, I think about 15% or so, right, Lori? The truck traffic is up by almost double digits. Trucks pay a higher toll as compared to passenger vehicles, so our revenues at this point are almost back to where they usually are. So now let's talk about the coming year in 2021. This is our budget for 2021. The number down at the bottom, I believe it's, I don't have it on my notes here, but I think it's 330 million, 322. It's $322 million. So in 2020, our budget was 355. That's what we had projected at the end of 2019. But for this year, we are projecting 322. Why is that? Because we don't think that the traffic is going to be back to 2019 levels in 2021. We are already at the end of April, or in April, and we haven't seen everything open up the way maybe we thought that it would. So the traffic is still not back to normal levels. So to be prudent, we had set our budget at 322 million. Now I'm a very optimistic person. Sometimes I call myself a hopeless optimistic. I'll be honest with you, I believe we're going to exceed that. That is based on what we think we're going to get in total revenue this year. But if looking outside, as I mentioned, the truck traffic is higher. And in June or July, if people start opening up businesses, there'll be passenger traffic will probably go up too. So I don't know. Let's keep our fingers crossed. It might be maybe 330. I don't know. But this is a good conservative number for us. Now the Turnpike has debt. Every Turnpike has debt. It's like an enterprise fund. You're starting from scratch. How do you start? Borrow money, build a road, then you use the revenue to pay off the debt. So since we carry debt, we have bond covenants with our bankers and those who oversee our financial operations. When we get our money, we are required to spend our money with a certain hierarchy. First and foremost, we have to pay for our operating expenses. Second is the debt service. And once we have made the debt service, what's left can go into our projects, which we call our capital program. So so if you look at that chart over there, our debt service is 36% of our total budget. That's high, but believe it or not, turnpikes and similar enterprises across the country, many of them carry a much higher debt. We think this is a good number. If you look at, like when you go apply for a loan, what do they tell you? You can get this much. You qualify for this much. We think that we qualify for more, but we like to stay conservative. We want to pay down our debt because there might be future infrastructure needs, some of which I'm going to talk about in just a sec. So as long as we keep our debt manageable, we're going to be fine with that. Now let's talk about the toll collection modernization. So there are three types of toll systems in the country. In the world, actually, it's the same technology. The first one is what we've got out there. It's a gated system. You drive in, you stop at a gate. If you have an easy pass, it opens. If you don't have an easy pass, you take a ticket, and the same thing happens when you get off. Transactions are either through your easy pass or cash or credit. That's what you call a gated system. The second type of system is what you call open road tolling. And anyone here travels in Pennsylvania? Okay. Well, Pennsylvania is what you call all electronic tolling. So all electronic tolling means there is nothing there. So even though the toll plazas are still there on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, there's no one in those toll plazas. They're empty. So you just keep going. And if you don't have an easy pass, then there are cameras there that will take a picture of the license plate and send you a bill. That happens in Illinois, South Carolina, Canada, a lot of places where you're traveling, and you may not even know you're paying for traveling, and you get home from your vacation and you get a bill in the mail. So that's what's called all electronic tolling. The third is what you call open road tolling, and open road tolling is a combination of all electronic tolling and the gated system. We have decided that our modernized system is going to be the open road tolling system, and there's a reason for that. If we go to all electronic tolling, we're going to have to lay off 400 toll collectors. That's not a nice thing to do. Also, if we go to all electronic tolling, 60% of our passengers use easy passes, 65%, which means 35% do not, which means those 35% are going to have to pay their bills when we send them a bill in the mail. And what if half of them decide they're just not going to pay? We're going to be forced to become a collection agency. So typically, states and turnpikes that go to all electronic tolling, they do that if the easy pass rate is 80% or higher, because then there's a smaller number of people that you have to chase to get the fees, the user fees. So keeping that in mind, our employees, as well as the fact that we didn't want to become a collection agency, we decided to go to open road tolling. And what happens with open road tolling? If you look at those pictures over there, those of you who can see the picture, the top right is actually from the Illinois Turnpike. That is what an open road tolling system looks like. The road in the middle is free flow traffic. There are no gates. Onto the side, you still have gates. So if you have an easy pass, just keep going at highway speeds through the middle. Cameras will either read your license plate, or the sensors will read the easy pass, and the transaction will happen automatically. If you don't have an easy pass, or if you prefer to interact with a person, you go off to the side, and you have the option to go through a toll gate. So that's what's called open road tolling. Many things happen with open road tolling, and this is just industry practice. Sometimes tolls are set in segments. So if there's a 10-mile segment or an 8-mile segment which has 2 or 3 access points in between, there'll be one fixed toll for that segment. That is not unusual. That happens. It's because it's very difficult to build all these sensors. Ideally, you would only pay for the portion of the road that you use, but when you do open road tolling, that becomes very difficult to do. So the standard practice is you divide the road up into segments. Another thing that sometimes happens with open road tolling is you pay in one direction. It is assumed that most people, if you're going somewhere, you're going to come back. There are very few people who are just going to make that one-way trip across the Ohio Turnpike and never come back. Perhaps you're moving to California, but that's a different story. But usually, if you're going there, well, you're probably going to come back. One thing that happens sometimes is you pay toll one way, but you're paying for both sides. So the toll is going to be higher, but you won't pay it on the way back. And I'll talk about that in just a second. I wanted to mention that because that is important for this part of the state. So this map that's up on the screen right now, every square is a toll plaza, where we have an interchange. There are 31 across the Turnpike. Red shows what's going to go away. So on the east side of the state where we are now, I think is that four or five, Lori? On the east side? 5 on the east side? 5 gates, 5 interchanges are not going to have toll plazas. Access is still going to be there. You can still get on, you can still get off. But the reason why we did it this way is because the movement from these toll plazas, in between these toll plazas, from these small interchanges, is very little. It costs us more to maintain the buildings and the staff in collecting tolls. So I think we are spending $1 million a year to collect $600,000 in tolls. So that's not very good. would have failed the math test with that, right? So we decided that so that is part of the process of the open road tolling. When you modernize it, you start making it more efficient as well. We're not going to lay those people off. As I mentioned, a lot of our people are retiring, so these people are going to be reassigned to other areas along the Turnpike. The other thing that we're going to do on this side of the state is the toll is only going to be on the westbound section. That is because Pennsylvania tolls everyone on the eastbound section. So if you are traveling from Pennsylvania to Cleveland, when you enter Ohio, and when you go through our new open road tolling plazas, you will pay a flat fee, and that flat fee is going to cover back and forth. So that when you're going back from Cleveland into Pennsylvania on the east, heading east, you will not have to pay that toll again. And first we were thinking, let's not do it this way. Now in the Toledo side, in the Indiana side, we are not doing it that way because the Indiana toll road is a gated system, so like ours, so nobody's going to get whacked twice. But in Pennsylvania, the moment you enter Pennsylvania, heading east, there's a flat fee that you are assessed. And we wanted to be fair to people because we think that in this part of the state, as I mentioned, there are very few people who are just going and never coming back. Most people are going to make that travel westbound, but also come back eastbound. So it helps us make the system more efficient, and it also kind of gives it a little bit of equity. If you're going westbound, pay twice. Pay for eastbound and westbound to Ohio. And if you're going eastbound, you can pay that to Pennsylvania. It's fair to the customer as well. Now, Mr. Coviello and I have had several conversations about this. This is a different concept. This concept is going to raise a lot of questions, and the questions we get is, well, why do you have to do it that way? Why can't you just charge us this way? So one of the things that I'm hoping to do, from this meeting and from other meetings like this, is to develop contacts with people so that when you do have questions, if your businesses, if your communities, whoever has questions, please reach out so we can sit down with them and talk to them, explain to them why this is the best way for us to operate. It's sometimes you got to find the right balance between technology and something that's easy to operate. And I think that we went back and forth about that at the Turnpike before solidifying our plans, and we found that this was the easiest way for us to implement open road tolling. Just another depiction of what I just described, so I'm going to skip this slide. Now let's talk about, another aspect of modernization is legislation. So on the picture, you're going to see on the left Saddam Hussein, and on the right Andy Sipowicz. So actually, that's me on the right. A guy sitting across from me at a bar told me that I looked like Saddam Hussein when my beard was that long, so I trimmed it. And the guy, he was a friend of mine, so I didn't mind. The guy on the right is Adam Greenslade. He works with me and Lori, and we tease him that he looks a little bit like Andy Sipowicz from NYPD Blue. So part of the toll modernization is the laws in the state are not there for us to modernize our toll system. I mentioned that if you don't have an easy pass and you go through the sensors, somebody gets a picture of the license plate, right? And we bill you. Well, there has to be a law that allows us to do that. There also has to be a law that allows us to pursue collections if people choose not to pay. After all, this is a business. We are providing infrastructure. It costs us a lot of money to maintain this infrastructure and keep it at a certain level. And those with easy passes are paying, so those who don't have easy passes also have to pay. So the law has to be there, and there are many aspects of the law, but I'll just mention a couple of things. One part is we need to have the ability to work with the BMV to put a hold on the license on renewal, on your license renewal or the vehicle registration for those who don't pay excessive tolls. This is, cities do it. Cities do it for parking. Cities do it for other types of fines. And this is nothing different that we are looking for. We are looking for the same authority that so many communities already have under state law in Ohio. The second part of that is a burden on us to make sure that everybody's information is kept private. This is an interesting world we live in. Everybody's after everybody's information and to steal their identity and so on and so forth. So the burden on us to make sure that as we are dealing with our customers electronically, that we keep their private information private. So that's going to be part of the law. Now let's talk about some innovation. We have, the Ohio Turnpike has a history of innovation. Back in the 80s, there was a group of people at the Turnpike who decided to put a fiber optic cable all the way from Pennsylvania to Indiana. The Pennsylvania Turnpike is in the process of putting fiber optic cable now in 2021. So is the Indiana toll road, and so are our friends at ODOT. They're putting in fiber optic cable in 33, whereas we at the Turnpike have had that fiber optic cable going all the way back to the 80s. So somebody had the foresight to say, this would be a good thing, and they put that in there. The second thing is, many of you have heard about autonomous and connected vehicles. Have you? Show of hands. So an autonomous vehicle drives itself. A connected vehicle has technology where it can talk to other vehicles or where it can talk to infrastructure. For that, you need sensors on the road, and you call that a connected highway. The Ohio Turnpike is the Midwest's first connected highway. We installed sensors about 4 years ago, and the way this technology is evolving, they were obsolete 2 years ago. They were good for 2 years, and then that technology is obsolete. So we are still working towards maintaining our status as an innovative entity, and I'll talk about a couple of things now. Mr. Coviello mentioned truck platooning, so let's talk about truck platooning. First of all, what is truck platooning? So when I was coming in this morning, I drove next to one of our LCVs, the combination trailers. There were 3 trailers. So those trailers were connected to each other with a hitch, right? So there's one driver driving, and you've got these 3 very large trailers, and basically he's controlling all 3 of them with the controls in the cab. Well, imagine trucks like that, except the connection is not physical. The connection is electronic. So that's what truck platooning is all about. You have 2 or more trucks following each other. The driver in the lead truck is controlling all the trucks. And why is that important? Well, it is said that there is a shortage of truck drivers in the country. It is said that that shortage is going to continue. We are still, in terms of population, we are growing. We have so much more capacity. I mean, what happens when our population crosses the 400 million mark? Well, that's 400 million consumers. We love to consume, right? So all that consumption is going to be on trucks. So the freight traffic over the next 10, 20, 50 years, hopefully forever, is just going to keep increasing. So what they're thinking, what automobile innovators are thinking, is that the best way to manage that is to advance the truck platooning technology so that if there aren't enough truck drivers, technology can move freight. We worked with what we call the Smart Belt Coalition, and the Smart Belt Coalition is made up of Michigan, Ohio Department of Transportation, Ohio Turnpike, Michigan DOT. Isn't that weird to call Michigan part of a Smart Belt Coalition? That's okay, yeah. That's all right. They did a good job for us, and many educational institutions. So what we did was we tested back in October a platoon of 2 trucks. It started in Pittsburgh. From Pittsburgh, it came to the Ohio Turnpike, went all the way to the Toledo interchange, and then went up to Detroit to deliver food to a food bank. And nobody knew that platoon. We didn't want to create a big advertisement or something about it because we were concerned that it would become people might be concerned about it. So we decided to just keep it low key, and it worked out very well. Okay, I know that Mayor Arno Hill is going to be interested in this with everything that's going on right here in this area. Charging stations. Every automobile maker is now making electric vehicles, and then of course we have Lordstorm right here. So where are these charging stations? So we have 4 of our service plazas that have charging stations, but we are now in the process of getting charging stations in all of our service plazas. What's interesting is Tesla. The Tesla charger does not work with other vehicles, and other vehicles' chargers don't work for Tesla. So there's going to be. So we are working on 2 separate fronts: one for Tesla and one for everybody else. But that's fine. Someday, all of this is going to be standardized. The next step in charging electric vehicles is called in-road charging, and Mayor, that's where we hope to do some work with you in this community. What if half the vehicles out there are electric? Can the power grid handle it? Probably not. Where are you going to charge them? Where are you going to find all those plugs? So what people are thinking is the best way to handle that in the future is called in-lane charging. As you're driving your car, you're driving over a portion of the road that charges the vehicle as you drive over it. This is nascent technology. They've got a pilot program somewhere in Sweden, and we are, and many people from the valley here, and we are working together with the University of Utah, who's the main researcher in America, to figure out how we can do it. Our goal is that perhaps in this part of the state, we can implement the first in-lane charging. Now, another thing I wanted to mention when it comes to future innovation is, people talk about drones. So we are, as I mentioned, with Amazon and FedEx and everybody coming and and delivering. What happens when drones start delivering small packages? And what does that mean to us? Logic tells me that they're not going to be running all over the place. Logic tells me that there are going to be some sort of patterns in the air that they have to follow. Well, how does that pertain to the Turnpike? So we are very interested in this technology. I don't know if we have air rights. I don't know if they travel in the air of the Turnpike for free or if they pay us for traveling. So all of these things go hand in hand with those of us who are in the business of infrastructure, because our relevance has a lot. How relevant we are going to be is going to depend on what kind of technologies come out. So we talk about autonomous vehicles. In a future, when vehicles are autonomous, what's going to be happening to equipment? Is equipment going to be autonomous too? Yes. Why would it not be? If cars and trucks are going to be autonomous, one would think that bulldozers and front-end loaders are going to be autonomous. That means we have to think about the workforce of the future. Today, when we hire people, we require them to have a CDL, 2 years of equipment experience, and be able to lift 50 pounds. Is that going to be relevant 20 or 30 years from today? Are they going to have the CDL and lift weight, or are they going to be the type of people who can operate autonomous equipment through some sort of a computer program? That opens up so many possibilities, because that opens up those types of jobs to people who today, due to a physical condition, may not be able to do work like that. So another thing that we are working on right now on the Ohio Turnpike is solar fields. We have a lot of land. Like a lot of public entities, when you build infrastructure, you have to buy a piece of land, and what do you do with that vacant land? So we are currently in the process to find out if a developer will work with us to build a solar field, and then what do we get out of it? Well, what we get out of it is cheap electricity or free electricity, and then they will be able to sell the rest of the electricity. Sort of a public-private partnership. I think these kinds of deals and these kind of partnerships are going to be very relevant in the future. And since I'm talking about solar energy and the sun is bright, I'm going to end by saying that I believe that the future of the Ohio Turnpike, the future of transportation, and the future of the valley is very bright. There are a lot of great things happening. There are a lot of communication going on. And as I mentioned, despite the fact that we have conservative numbers for 2021, I really think 2021 is going to be a great year for us. I truly appreciate the opportunity to come here and visit with all of you. I love the people in the valley. It's a different culture here. There's a lot of friendship and a lot of loyalty, and I admire that. And it's been my pleasure, and I'll take any questions that you may have for me.
Okay, folks, Ferzan is going to entertain questions. There are two people with roaming microphones. One is Kathy King. Raise your hand over there, Kathy. And so raise your hand if you have a question, and then she will bring that microphone over to you. Don't grab the mic. Kathy will hold it for you. And also, Councilman Terry Alberini also has one of the microphones as well. So, Ferzan, I'll turn you over to the Lions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Katie Carl. I have a couple of questions. All right, Mr. Ferzan, you're talking about all the ways you're going to help the Turnpike Commission, and only the Turnpike Commission. None of the things that you discussed are going to help any of the local towns, communities, or anything else along the way. And this is part of the regional chamber. And I guess my biggest concern is you go through a lot of towns, cities, and communities and townships. All right, what are you going to do to help the local economy? And all right, you want to do solar. Okay, what about tying in? And the fiber optics that you have that you're running through and you have run through all these years, why won't you tie into the local towns and communities that could really help and sustain all of these local communities? When are you going to help them out since you've helped yourself so long?
I love it. That is really good. I really appreciate what you've said because these are some of the things that are important to me. I'm going to go backwards, and then please stop me if I skip one of your questions, if I've forgotten. Let's talk about fiber optic first. When the fiber optic cable first went in, there were certain contracts that we had to abide by. One of the provisions of the contract was that we can only use the fiber optic. So there are 24 strands, 12 belong to us, 12 belong to the developer. Our 12 can only be used for us. That contract is coming to an end, and we are in the process of negotiating new contracts. I assure you, the new contracts are not going to have that provision because we do want to tie in. It's a lateral. So if there's a community in this area that does not have fiber optic cable, all we got to do is figure out how to get it from that community to the Turnpike. You don't have to go miles and miles or tens of miles to find it. That is our goal. And we were tied by the existing contract, and hopefully our new contracts are not going to have, well, I'm not going to sign a contract like that. Our new contracts are not going to have that. We want the ability to be able to tie in with the community. As far as our interaction with the community in the service plazas that we operate in, there are huge amounts of sales taxes that are generated in those service plazas, which come back to the counties where we operate. But now I'm going to approach your first question, what are we doing with the community? I'm so glad that you challenged me on that because I wanted to somehow put that into my presentation, but I didn't. We are working very closely with, what do we call it? Can you give me the name of the group? Eastgate. No, the
Council of Governments?
Not the Council of Governments. You know, when we're talking about the electrification, the hub, the smart hub? Voltage Valley. So the smart hub, it's with everything that's happening in Lordstown, one of the things that we've been doing with Eastgate is what can we do to advance mobility technologies. So when I mentioned to you the in-lane charging that we want to do, and I don't want that in-lane charging on the Ohio Turnpike. I don't know where I'd put it because on the Ohio Turnpike, cars travel at 70 miles an hour. In-lane charging has to be done at lower speeds. We want to do that somewhere off the Turnpike in one of the local communities, and we want to be participant in that. So it's not important to me that it needs to be on the Turnpike. It's important to me that it should be in this part of the state because there's a lot of activity in this part of the state. So as advisors and participants, if we can play a role in making that first project happen here, then that's what you're going to see from us.
Kathy has a question.
Okay.
Kathy, do you have one? No? Mr. Kropp has a question.
First of all, good morning. Thank you so much for coming out and giving this presentation. We really appreciate it. A lot of people are interested to hear what you have to say. One thing that caught my ear, and Katie kind of addressed something else I wanted to ask about community involvement, but you did mention as far as consumerism, as far as moving forward over the next 10, 15, 20, 40, 50 years, I don't think it's realistic to consider consumerism to continue to grow exponentially indefinitely. That's not a reasonable thing to expect. So where's the cutoff? I travel on the Turnpike very often. I'm going east and west all the time, and the volume of trucks is just growing and growing and growing. So the thought of having the 3 trailer trucks and then having them platoon together is, I know my wife doesn't like seeing trucks side by side all the time constantly. They really do take up a lot of the road space. How are we going to limit the access? Because it can't grow forever exponentially. It just can't. So what are your plans as far as the next 10 or 15 years, and how do we address that?
Thank you. Great question. So when the Turnpike first opened up, it was a 2-lane road. 2 lanes in each direction all the way from Indiana to Pennsylvania. And as traffic grew about a couple of decades ago, started the program to add the 3rd lane widening. And 160 miles of the 241 miles are now 3 lanes, and the rest of it is 2 lane. So, when we look at it from a traffic perspective, we look at congestion, and we also look at safety. So congestion and safety is what pretty much dictates what we are going to do with our road in the future. So there might be a need in the future to add 3 lanes in the rest of the Turnpike. We don't have those projections yet. We look out a few years. An old friend of mine used to tell me that anything beyond 5 years is science fiction. I know planners disagree. Planners want to plan out 20 years. We do need to have a 20-year plan, but we need to assess 5 years at a time just to see how much. The comment that you made, it can't go on forever. What is that? What about other modes of transportation? There might be the Hyperloop has been discussed. There might be trains, and now people are talking about Amtrak. So yes, you're right. It's not logical to assume that everything is going to be on the road, but the road traffic will increase. As you have pointed out, it does increase, and at some point we're going to have to look at widening the rest of the Turnpike. And the other way we can handle things like that is, are all the interchanges configured properly to handle greater volumes? And if not, then those changes will have to be redone also to accommodate the traffic.
Hi, thank you again for coming. So I'd like to understand the closing of the toll booths at the east and the west. Today I came up from Poland, Ohio. I paid $2 on the Turnpike to get here. I won't be paying that, correct? I can't. East to west. When I'm going back home, am I going to pay it then? Or will it be totally free both ways?
For you, it will be totally free both ways.
Stay here for me. So I'm looking to exploit this for my community's advantage. In other words, we can commercially use the Turnpike without paying for it if we're just coming between Mahoning and Trumbull counties, any of those points. There were 5 different interchanges I could get off of and pay nothing. So my business just got a new road to use for free.
Some of that, unfortunately, will happen.
We would look at it positively from our perspective, of course.
We did that just for you, you know that, right? Okay.
I appreciate that, sir.
Some of that, unfortunately, will happen, and that is one of the considerations we have to take into account when we do open road tolling. Open road tolling is a more efficient system, but it's not a perfect system. As I had mentioned, for us to keep the interchanges open the way that we have it right now, it's costing us about $1 million a year, but we are getting back $600,000 a year. So is it possible that with some people you use the word exploiting? That's fine, we can use that word. If some people exploit those free entrance and exit points, is it possible that those numbers will become more even in the future? It's very possible. Is it possible that 5-6 years after we implement this, we see that this is not working out for us? That's also possible, at which point we'll have to do something about it, because we are a business, we do want to provide a service, but like every business, we have to look at the net number. So in order to get revenue from that movement, if we are spending more money, that doesn't make sense to us as a business.
One last question.
What is your financial analysis with the Turnpike versus 422? Like, for example, if somebody starts in Parkman and they're going to Brecksville, and, 422 can be a lot slow and there's a lot more situation than Turnpike and versus coming back. So they do a round trip. So what you're potentially now going to have a loss of revenue because now they're like, well, I don't want to pay both ways. I'm going to only go get the Turnpike back. So what, you guys look at those types of analysis?
We do. We look at all those movements and we look at, what we know in terms of traffic projections, in terms of traffic patterns. One of the things we look at is also the right toll rate. Our toll rates are very competitive as compared to some of the other turnpikes. They are extremely good as compared to Pennsylvania. And I think only in the Midwest, I believe Indiana is the only agency that has a lower rate for vehicles, for passenger vehicles, but they have a higher rate for truck traffic. So we have to, when we make these types of decisions, we look at a lot of different factors, and there is no system that answers all the questions. Even if we keep the gated system that exists right now, I guess you could say that the gated system is the perfect system because it captures every movement, but people don't want to stop. Passengers are, I don't want to stop. When you can see this everywhere in every industry. At the banks, people don't go to tellers; they go through the drive-through because it's easier. Now they're using phone apps. In the grocery store, there are more and more people taking those self lanes rather than the other lanes because it's faster, more convenient. Same applies to the toll business. People don't want to stop; they want to keep going. And now we got to figure out how we can accommodate that. And the other part of that equation is that a toll system is good for 10 to 15 years. 12 years is the average. And these are very specialized systems. There are only like 7 or 8 companies in the world that make these toll systems. They're not making gated systems anymore. So ultimately, we become a subject of the technology that is available to us, and we have to figure out how to balance the technology versus efficiency.
Okay. How about another round of applause for Ferzan Ahmed? Ferzan, stay standing here for a moment. A couple other recognitions wanted to do. We had an entire table from the school system, which also included one of our school board members, Julie Stimper. Why don't you stand up the school board table over there? That's John Crowder, the principal of the high school. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'm not saying that high school ages you, but John is 27 years old. Take a look at him. Okay. I want to say thanks to the people from On-Demand Testing. I know Tom Ivany had a group here today, so just wave your hand. Thank you very much. Tom Ivany and On-Demand Testing have been converting buildings, spending millions of dollars in Newton Falls, investing in our community. We appreciate that. And speaking of investing in our community, now going 3 shifts, full tilt, making anything out of plastic you could just about imagine. Please recognize one of the guys that makes it possible for us to have revenue in our community, and that we have the president of Venture Plastics here, Steve Trapp. Steve, where are you? There he is. Steve, stand up for a second, Steve. Steve, thank you for the commitment you've made to Newton Falls. We appreciate it. All right. Also, folks, I don't want to overlook, there was a recognition that Ferzan had of our veterans, but, we had a color guard of gentlemen that have served in all over theaters all over the world. Just want to recognize again the veterans of Newton Council that serve in our color guard, the Newton Falls Color Guard veterans of Newton Falls. Welcome, guys, and thanks so much. The guys in the white shirts over there that carried out the flag. Also want to make sure that I thank WFMJ Television, which was covering and did a piece on this event. Also WKBN Television did a piece on this event and was covering. Also, some of you may or may not realize that this event has been broadcast live on Newton Falls Television and also on YouTube, and greatly to the courtesy of Tom Gregory and Gregory Films Productions. Tom, wave over there. He's got the headset on. Okay, our next presentation to Ferzan is going to be made by our mayor, Ken Klein. Now, Ken Klein has been of great service to our community since he was elected mayor here in Newton Falls. He's going to make a presentation in a second, and he has indicated that the mayor's position should be a position of holiness and power. Ken told me that, and I wasn't sure what to make of it, except for about 6 months ago, we were out on a boat with some other guys in the middle of Lake Erie. And the boat began to capsize, and there were all kinds of problems. And we knew it was too far from shore that we could swim for it. And Ken said, "Don't worry, I'll walk." Okay. All right. Please welcome for a brief presentation your friend and all of ours, the mayor of the great city of Newton Falls, Mayor Ken Klein.
Okay, before I make this presentation to Mr. Ahmed, I wanted to just give out a couple of thank yous. First to Robbie Lee and his staff. If it wasn't for them serving us, we wouldn't have all this enjoyable food. And we just wanted to thank the ladies for running around and taking care of us today. Secondly, to our visitors and guests, thank you for coming into Newton Falls. I'm sure as my wife, she's not originally from Newton Falls, and she used to ask me all the time, why is it that people, when they come to Newton Falls, they grow up there, they never leave, And I said, well, why would you, But, and then lastly, it's not very often I get the opportunity with the community employees here for the different departments, the school, the fire department, and stuff like that. I'll see you in town individually a little bit, but I just want to thank you for all that you do. Not only from your mayor, but as your neighbor. I really, really appreciate each of you. Then there's usually that one moment I tell the individuals in church with every sermon that I give out that I put my foot in my mouth. So here it goes. I say it anyways. But I liked on your video, Mr. Ahmed, that when you talked about, what was it? Made the comment about Saddam Hussein, and it just kind of reminded me, my boys the other day, I got a 18-year-old and a 16-year-old, they're always, Dad, you gotta grow a beard, Dad. I said, you would look smooth, or you would look whatever, you would look fresh, you gotta grow a beard. And I told him, I said, I grew a beard once, grew a nice beard, I thought it looked really good, and everybody told me I looked like Bin Laden. Cut it off and never again. But so now they got that out of my way. Mr. Ahmed, I wanted to thank you not only for the really good presentation, it was very informative, and I think everybody here appreciates that, but thank you for partnering with not only Newton Falls, but the surrounding community, and I'm just excited to see how it can benefit the Turnpike Commission as well as Newton Falls and all the surrounding area.
Take it out of the box, Kate.
Okay. Only if I get to recycle the box.
Okay, you can do that.
Okay. I wore my glasses here. See if we got some light.
Here, take it out of the plastic. Give that over here.
Have to get on Robbie for his lighting here. It says the key to the city of Newton Falls, Ohio Turnpike Director, Ferzan Ahmed. Yeah.
This is truly amazing. I'm very honored. Thank you so much, Mayor. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, we're touching third and heading home here, folks. Some of you may have noticed that ice sculpture to my immediate left, and I want you to know how that happened. We were trying to figure out what to do or say about Ferzan, so I called the governor's office, and I got right through to the governor, and I said, Ferzan Ahmed. He said, I want that man's head on ice. So that's what we did. All right, well, my friend Tom Todd is all fired up there, so I've prepared a very, very brief musical tribute to our best guest of all. Give me a G7 chord, would you, Tom? Ferzan is here to fix our state. He'll eliminate our toll booth gate. Visitors won't have to wait. Ferzan is great. He'll bring new jobs to Newton Falls. A brilliant man who answers calls. Computerizing bathroom stalls is his next plan. He knows roads. He knows they need repair. And with a special flair, he'll keep us driving. Ferzan, you know this is no jest. Newton Falls will pass the test. Please approve our grant request. Ferzan is great. Ferzan, Ahmed. Okay. Yeah. Katie Carl said, don't give up your day job. Thank you, Katie. Feel like I'm at a council meeting. Okay. The next item is to have us bow our heads as we prepare to adjourn with a closing prayer by Judge Matthew Lynch of the 11th District Court of Appeals. Your Honor.
Thank you, Brother David. My younger brother David, let's make that clear. When David asked me to say a closing prayer, I thought I might start with a funny story, but after listening to him all morning, I'm just going to pass on the jokes. I was interested in the director's comments about the roads and the interstate highways and how they were started by President Eisenhower. And President Eisenhower did a lot of wonderful things, and believe it or not, just about a few months before he became president, he was baptized. And when he became president, he was approached with the idea of adding to the Pledge of Allegiance the words, under God. We are one nation under God. And some people are leaving that out of the pledge these days. But when that was put into the pledge in 1954, this is what President Eisenhower had to say. And the school board members might be particularly interested in this. President Eisenhower said, from this day forward, the millions of our school children will daily proclaim in every city and town, every village and rural house, the dedication of our nation and our people to the Almighty. In this way, we are reaffirming the transcendence of religious faith in America's heritage and future. In this way, we shall constantly strengthen those spiritual weapons which forever will be our country's most powerful resource in peace or in war. Wonderful sentiments. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Lord, we are so grateful for this day and for this opportunity to get together. We ask you to bless everyone here as they travel home or to work today. We ask you to give all of us here and all of our extended families and our workforce families good health and prosperity. Lord, we ask these things of you in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Thank you, everybody. We stand adjourned. Thanks. Have a great day today, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. I hope you do come back. Your brother said he's got to quit writing your material. Thanks. Director. We'll see you Tuesday night.